Oh man. Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology, friends. Today we're asking the question, are geeks bad at dealing with death? Well, yeah, we're human. Death is hard and death sucks. So, yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. Death. No, also could be another title for this episode could be two Lutherans and a Matthew walk into a bar and talk about All Saints Day. That's what we're going to talk about today. Yes, happy All Saints Day, everyone. Yes, this is our All Saints Day special. And in this episode, we're going to discuss what All Saints Day is or what it could be. We're going to share what our favorite saints are, who our favorite saints are. And then we're going to get our geek on and talk about that geeky trope of characters dying off in our favorite fandoms and then a dramatic return. And so death and dramatic returns from death, or in some fandoms it's not that dramatic because we knew they were going to be brought back anyway. But anyway, we're going to talk about all those things and more. So I got to bring to the stage with me my friends James and Matthew. James and Matthew, how are you doing? What are you geeking out on these days? Matthew, you go first.
Oh, me. Okay. Let's see. What am I geeking out on? I recently started playing through Ocarina of Time again, just because it's been a long time. So, literally, just walking around at work yesterday with the Last Woods music in my head. So, it's
Fun.
yep, yep. Game is living rent free all over again.
Cool. James,
Do
James, are
that.
you familiar with that game? Are you familiar with that
Oh
game?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. There you go. Common
Gets me
geeking.
that one. Doing that. Been playing through Echoes of Wisdom. Although right now I loaned it to my brother, so I'm gonna let him beat it first, and then I'll come back and finish it. And then Lego Star Wars, the definitive edition, was $12 on the eShop. So I got the whole thing. So that's all 9 movies. Rogue One is in there. It's got the Mando character pack. It's got some Andor characters. So it's basically all of the DLC, but like 2 packs. And it was $11.99. So why the hell not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Jordan, my 8-year-old, has been playing that. That's his first exposure to playing Lego Star Wars. So
Nice.
we've
That's
been
good
having
parenting. That's
yeah,
great parenting.
been having a fun time with that.
Super cool. Yeah. James, how about you?
Yeah, I'm continuing on my journey through the Brandon Sanderson literary universe. So I've tackled all of those this year, and I am pretty much. I think I got like 1 or 2 left. I'm pretty much caught up for the Stormlight Archive Book 5 to come out in December, and these are like huge, 1,000-page books, and there's a lot of them, and I've just been lost this year. So I just finished up one of the series in the universe. So it's like an overlapping universe of multiple series on different planets, all happening at once, kind of. And yeah, it's really it's like the Marvel universe, but better power systems, more consistency, nothing.
There you go. That's not a bad recommendation or pitch for that.
Here, it's awesome. Anyways, so I've been lost in that, and I'm also playing right now. I've been reading a book and then doing a game and going back and forth. And I'm playing Echoes of Wisdom as well.
Yeah,
and really having a good time with it. It's really refreshingly different. So it's good.
Fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
Cool. Nice.
What about you, Will? What's going on with you?
Yeah. I have either of you guys watched the Lego Star Wars Rebuilding the Universe? Have you guys watched that?
No.
Yeah, it's pretty good on Disney Plus. You guys talking about Star Wars games and Lego Star Wars. I thought it was really well done, and I think held true to canon, did some of the what if stuff in Star Wars. It was a lot of fun. But I will say I'm geeking out that I just got back from the Theology Beer Camp with my friend Joshua, and so it's nice having Systematic Geekology out in the wild, talking with fans and people who listen to us month in and month out. That was super cool. And then we got North Carolina Comic-Con coming up a couple weeks away from now, or maybe next week, by the time you listen to this. And it's going to be fun to do a panel in the wild, live, and mixing up with people in person, which is pretty fun. We do a lot of this on YouTube and get in people's earbuds and hear them, but I think meeting people face to face and promoting who we are is kind of where it's at and a lot of fun. So that is what I am geeking on. So yeah, friends, happy All Saints Day. There's the seismic charge. We have to get into the episode here. Today's episode, as we said, we're going to talk about All Saints Day, what it is, our experience with it. You have some Protestants here. It'd be nice to have a Catholic on here, talk about the Catholic or Eastern Orthodox perspective of saints. But this is who we have available for this episode and our host. And then we're going to talk about how that plays into our geekdom and why are geeks so bad at death or dealing with death in their fandoms. And I have a couple thoughts. I'm sure my friends do here. First of all, what is like our experience and understanding of All Saints Day? James and I are cut from the same cloth in terms of Lutherans, and we have All Saints Sunday coming up this Sunday in our church. But Matthew, in terms of your experience, your background, what are some of your understanding of All Saints Day, or if that comes into play in your tradition? If it doesn't, no shame at all. Just I'm curious.
Oh, it's definitely not part of my tradition at all, but studying what Halloween really is and holidays and where they come from and all that
Yeah.
stuff, because you do have you do have those out there who try and take all of our fun things. And so
100%.
whether they be pagans trying to reclaim what they believe is pagan, or they are fundamentalists saying, well, don't you know that's all just witchcraft and you need to stay away.
Yeah.
But from all sides, they want to take our fun away. So, but no. So but Halloween, for those that don't know, is Christian.
All Hallows Eve, the eve before a special day. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Expand on that. What? Yeah. Can't leave that hanging. Like what?
Okay.
What? Yeah.
So-
Go for it.
So, I mean, obviously, it's gone through all kinds of stuff, and it has just become this amorphous cultural thing. But go back far enough, and it is, as you say, All Saints Day, or you go back far enough into Catholic tradition, and it was All Hallows Day, right?
Mm.
It is a day. It is a hallowed day to remember, not just the saints and the martyrs, but really all of the church, invisible, universal, Catholic Church, however you want to put it, that have walked before us and are with us, as the creeds say, if you happen to be creedal.
There you go. I'm glad you mentioned, Halloween, because that's the background. All Hallows Eve, the night before All Saints Day, a holy day, and there's a lot wrapped up with that in tradition. We won't go into that here, but in terms of like the understanding that November 1st is a holy day, so on October 31st, the demons and those who aren't good, those that aren't holy, are trying to get all their shenanigans out of the way, so they're not going to get in trouble on November 1st. And what's wrapped up with that in terms of jack-o'-lanterns and dressed up in costumes to blend in, all that's part of there. But in terms of All Saints Day, there's this understanding that there's a lot of feast days within the church, capitals Catholic, lowercase Catholic, and there's only 365 days out of the year, so you can't have a special day for all the saints that are out there, because we know there's more than 365 saints. So why not we have a day when we say this is a day we're going to celebrate saints or role models in the Christian faith, those that we look up to, and those known and those unknown, those that would never make the headlines or go viral or get the great tradition or legend or feast day named after them, but there's a lot who go unnoticed or don't care about being noticed, and that's what makes them a saint anyway. And so it's kind of a catch-all day to celebrate all the saints who are out there. And I'll share a little bit more in terms of what our tradition does with that. But James, what am I missing there? Is there some things out there of your understanding of All Saints, and then leading into kind of how your tradition and church celebrates that?
Yeah. So All Saints Day. The first thing I was thinking as y'all were talking is sort of Halloween and its origins and how it all connects and things like that. You know, in the biblical world, in certainly in the Jewish biblical worldview, days begins when the sun goes down. Right. So from
Yes.
sundown to sundown the next day, that's the cycle of the day. We have a different rhythm where we think when we get up, that's when the day starts technically. Now, so you know, when all these big Christian holidays happened, right? The night before
Yes.
was when it started. So All Saints Day is November 1st. All Hallows Eve, the vigil of All Saints, would happen as the sun went down, right? Some traditions, like our traditions, still celebrate Easter Vigil, Christmas Eve. There's even a Pentecost Vigil. That's in our worship book, but no one ever does. But it's there, and it's cool if you ever get your liturgical nerd on. And so you know, it's connected to just the way that they organize days differently. And now we have this cultural Halloween dress up, and it's interesting to see how these traditions change across cultures. Right, I'm thinking like the Day of the Dead in Latin American cultures and the rich traditions that are there. I did some like very basic Wikipediaing today and like prep and prep for this, and apparently the November 1st date goes back to like the 800s in England. So this sort of comes from the British Isles, and apparently there's some people who think it like coincided with a Celtic holiday that like celebrated the harvest and like the turning of the, you know, darker half of the year. Big quotation marks on that if you're just listening.
Kind of the fall winter solstice, like it's different.
Well, that's the Saturnalia, right?
Yeah.
That's I think that was what it was sort of on continental Europe. It's some Celtic word, which I'm not going to say because those languages are tough.
Yeah. No, I would rather speak Hebrew.
Yeah. Yeah, because so you have, you know, October 31st, and for James and I who are Lutheran pastors, that's a special day because we call it Reformation Day. That's the day that Martin Luther nailed his 95 Reese's peanut butter cups. Theses on the church.
That's the real holiday, folks.
That's the real holiday.
Day.
Reformation Day. Yeah, I told my church on Sunday, I was like, hey, when you go out trick or treating, you can say trick or treat, but also like as you're leaving and say thank you for the candy. Also say Happy Reformation Day and see if anybody notices. And you might find some Lutherans in the wild out there. You never know.
If you're a real Lutheran, when you pass out candy, you also pass out a little copy of the 95 Theses in Latin and German,
which are really dry and boring. I think it repeats himself like 90 times in those 95. If you've ever read them for yourself, they're oh my goodness.
It's been a long time, but I think they're rattling around on my brain somewhere.
Yeah, try to read them all the way through, straight through. It was tough, but no, yeah. So yeah, October 31st, Martin Luther nails these, as legend has it, nails these 95 statements for debate, academic debate, because he knows everyone's going to come to church the next day on November 1st on all Hallows Day, All Saints Day, and so you have, you know, October 31st, Reformation Day, November 1st, All Saints Day, November 2nd, All Souls Day, All Saints, those who have attained heaven, those saints who are with the Lord, in the Lord, and are these role models who some claim can intercede for us, pray for us. And then you have November 2nd, All Souls, those who are dead but haven't yet attained heaven yet, but are in the care of the Lord. So all this stuff swirling around. My particular tradition and the Lutheran tradition, we on the Sunday of All Saints Sunday, leading into All Saints, we recognize that there are role models apart from those who are in the Bible. There are saints, Saint Nicholas, there's Saint Francis. Name your favorite saint. They're out there. We will later. And then, but in our tradition, we also remember those who have died in the faith in the last year, who are members of our church or loved ones, family and friends, loved ones of our church members. So we'll read a litany of names of those who have passed away in our church, and people in our church who have people close to them or look up to, or family members, that will read their names and ring a bell to remember them, that as they are baptized in the Lord, they are in the care of the Lord, that they are with the Lord. This kind of priesthood of all believers, the all saints. We're all saints and sinners at the same time, but we're made holy through our baptism into Christ. And so we read those names, remembering role models and loved ones that we missed, that have entered to the church triumphant. So that's kind of the Lutheran side of things. But we know that in terms of culturally, what some I do like it that like there's already Christmas decorations up on the shelf beside the Halloween stuff, because I'm like, cool, that's a great image of Satan sinner, like light and dark, death and new life, the light of the world. I like there's something imagery about this duality of saint and sinner and death and hope and new light and joy, all that coming together, that culturally those who market these things and want to make money or commodify these things don't know that they're actually being kind of theologically accurate, putting them side by side, because you can hold them in the same way. So anyway, I like seeing that out there. Matthew, James, I'm missing anything there in terms of how churches lift up All Saints, or how people see that out in the world?
Yeah, it's sort of the only thing I was thinking about that we didn't talk about yet is just, in the sort of more rich sacramental traditions, so like Catholic, Lutheran, Anglican, Orthodox, there is this thought that when we commune together, when we take Holy Communion, when we pray the Eucharistic prayer, we're gathered together with all the saints. And so in a special way on All Saints, there's kind of, if you get into liturgical theology and how it's all set up and what it's all meaning, and the Eucharistic prayer gets super long, and anyways, there's sort of a warping of space-time that theologically happens, in the cross, the past and present collapse, in God's final victory. We're all drawn into God's grace, and fed together, commune together, connect together at the table. So my current congregation, they have this tradition that I really love for All Saints, where one by one we read the names, and then we'll ring a bell, and it's just really stark, and the congregation will respond as the bell kind of goes out and say present.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. We read the names and ring the bell and then pause, but to have the congregation respond present. Like,
because they're like present with us in this moment. So it's like a really like beautiful, powerful sort of, I hadn't done it like that before. It's always really cool to see what other churches and congregations are doing. And so it's a really solid, powerful moment. Will, not too late to change your bulletin.
I know. I'm like, if I throw another like Uno reverse card at my staff, they're gonna be like, "What do you want to do now?" Yeah,
blame it on Katie. It's fine. Blame it on Katie.
That's right. The new person. Matthew, how about you? I know you're not Lutheran or come from like kind of a Catholic Orthodox background, like Eastern Orthodox, Russian Orthodox. But in terms of like,
I study, I study all things, but as far as my as far as my personal tradition or where I attend, I mean, we don't really kind of have any, recognition for that. But to James's point, yes, there is power in, so I have reverence for it. One day I hope to find the right kind of liturgical home for me, where me and my family are comfortable. But because there's, the point of it is exactly as he said, that all of the saints are gathered. So right, not just the ones that are there collective in your body, but the church universal, right? All of us. And then when there are shared liturgies, you know that you are doing the same thing together with all of the saints, who at least share the same liturgy as you. And there's just, I don't know, there's a beauty in that. There's a transcendence. There's a picture of heaven in that, where all of us will be literally partakers in the presence, not just through the sacrament, but the actual presence of Christ together.
Yeah.
One day.
Yeah, I think GK Chesterton. Somebody asked him like, "How big's the church?" He's like, "Go out and count the gravestones." It's like, and
Yeah.
then you'll have it. So I think there's in the creeds, apostles, and Nicene, you have this phrase, "I believe in the communion of saints," and
Yes.
that doesn't mean who I'm with here, but those who've gone before me and those who will come after me. That there's collective cloud of witnesses that scriptures speak of
Yep.
as well. And so, yeah, I think communion, liturgy, whether you're a non-liturgical or whether liturgical or non-liturgical church, there's still liturgy means the work of the people. So there's liturgy
Yes.
going on in your worship where you guys are call and response and where you're worshiping together and you're in this together. And so we
Yes.
believe that there is a communion of saints, those claimed by Christ to do that. So yeah, that's kind of our understanding of November 1st is a day on the church calendar, liturgical church calendar, of recognizing that there are more people out there than we would even know.
Yes.
That are saints, and so that's kind of the heart and the intent of that particular day and All Saints Sunday. And so we're gonna usually at Systematic Geekology we talk about like a fandom or a theme or a story, and then we get we theologize and we draw out the faith aspects and what's coming. We've done a little reverse here. Why not? All Saints Day, we're going to flip those tables like Jesus did. And, we talked about the theology and background behind it. And now, as this leads into our fandom and those stories that we love and geek out on, why geeks and deaths in our fandoms, what is it about geeks that love this aspect of, or this trope of, killing someone off, maybe, if you want to get cynical to sell more copies of comic books, but then also this dramatic return. So this ebb and flow of death and return, death and resurrection. It's happened in soap operas for a long time. It's happened in trilogies and movies. It happens in comic books. It happens in sci-fi. Like, what is it about this that geeks, as Joshua put it in the headline of this title, like why are we so bad at this, or why does this challenge us? And James, throwing it out there, you have cross-section, video games, comics, manga, sci-fi, Star Wars. What is it about this thing that fandoms and creators like do? We kill them off and then we know they're going to be back, or maybe most of the time, sometimes.
It's definitely like a grief response, right? I think, we all have our own experience of like just wrestling with the existential dread of death and in our own lives, right? We've lost family and friends and have to contemplate, this is going to get morbid, have to contemplate our own mortality. Yeah. And so, those things are so final in our real world, right? Like there's no escaping them. There's no getting someone back. And so I think part of it is, in our fandoms and these stories that are fiction, and that, there's never really, don't have to be a true end, right? I think it's the longing for hope that we want, and that brings, characters back. You never really want to let them go truly, right? So I think it's our, I could get really cynical and say it's like our emotional weakness, but it could also be like our emotional strength of just wanting to have something to hold on to, hope for. So, and then go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's embedded in creation too. We see the leaves fall, and then we see them bloom again in the spring. Entangled in creation itself is this birth and rebirth, this death and coming back. So yeah, even within creation itself, and then of course we have the Christ story we'll share a little bit later on in terms of this the ultimate defeating of death and resurrection. But then within the stories we tell to help us cope or to help us work through or process or workshop our own grief and understanding of life and be able to contemplate our own death and demise and finitude, is all wrapped up in kind of the stories we tell. And yeah, I think in fandom, there is this kind of dramatic, at least in the comics I read, there's this like dramatic death on the final page. You're like, oh crap, are they really dead? Are they going to be back? Did they really die? And then they are, but then you're like, and then that final page of that one you thought was dead is back. You're like, how do they come back? What's going on? And I think now, because of just the marketing behind comics is not necessarily, they market, oh, we're going to kill off this character, you better buy this issue. And then, oh, months ahead, we're going to bring this character back. You better make sure that you buy this. It's a very special issue. So there's that kind of cynicism I have with my own comic book collecting. But there is a sense of like killing off a character, bring them back, that I think draws with us to think through, what is life like without this character? What does that mean to the people around them? And then when they come back, what does that mean? Have they defeated death? What's going on? Matthew, what else out there? Not just comics, but sci-fi and other areas.
Yeah,
I'm sure video games as well. Like you guys game, you die, and then you get to come back with your saved stuff, right? You saved
you hit I think you hit the nail on the head though in the intro, right? It isn't just us geeks who are bad at death.
Yeah.
We're bad at death because we're humans, and humans are bad at death.
Yeah.
Because we can look to Genesis, right? Look to the account, right? Death was never meant to be. It is an invader rather. It is a foreign element to God's intended. Wow. That's complicated, but
yeah, that's what we do. We get complicated.
Obviously. Oh God, nope. I'm not going to go there. We have an hour. But
right.
Because that no. But there is something in us, right? Soul, spirit, what have you. That is this eternal energy. Well, not eternal, but immortal.
Yeah, I see where you're going. Yeah,
that knows that death is wrong and weird somehow. You're talking to someone, and the next day they're just not here. Yeah. And yet we know, or sometimes feel, that they are. And I just feel, that's the body soul thing. There's that part of us that knows that death's just not meant to be, that it isn't final, that there is some part of us that goes on. And so geekdom, whether it is video games or comic books or TV shows or what have you, we have all of these fictional avenues to explore. What if death isn't final, and we can bring this person back and we can be with them again? Whether it is Daniel Jackson ascending to a higher plane of existence, and then being cast out back down as a human again, not really dead, or whether it is your friends and family being brought back through the power of the Dragon Balls, or it is a time reset, or whatever it is. We have all these ways through fiction of exploring what it means for death to not be final.
Yeah, workshopping that. Cool. James, hop right in. You mentioned some, Matthew mentioned some fandoms out there, some examples of that. But James, expand on that a little bit. But then, what are some favorite characters that you have that have been brought back from the dead, or you thought were dead and then can't make a drive return? Do you have a memory? Do you have a first, fandom resurrection that resonates with you?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Everything that we've been talking about is just hitting so hard. We're human. We struggle with it. We're always going to, and our fandoms give us an opportunity to, think what if. I'm just thinking about the Marvel show. The one that comes to my mind really quickly is I'm a big manga reader. One Piece is like, it's my systematic geekology avatar is Luffy. And so I'm just thinking about how absolutely terrible Eiichiro Oda, the author of One Piece, is at death in One Piece. And there's like not like a fan favorite character. I mean, I like this character, but there's a character early on in the series who his name is Pell, and this is going to be a spoiler for Alabasta, an early arc in One Piece. So close your ears if you don't want to hear it. But at the end of this arc, he essentially carries this big, huge, like nuclear level bomb that's going to wipe out a whole city. And he is like he can transform into a bird. So he like transforms into a bird, carries it away. Like you see the explosion like in the sky, like absolutely no way this dude makes it. And then like, a couple chapters later, it's revealed that he did in fact somehow survive this mega huge explosion, that he like had a very meaningful sacrifice to. And it's just like, since then, it's just been an ongoing trope in One Piece that Eiichiro Oda can't do death. He's done better recently. People have died, but not many of them.
Yeah, I think of like the TV show Lost, like when that was going through, they were definitely, death means dead. Like they kill people off that you are fan favorites in certain seasons. You're like, man, they never came back. You're like, oh, maybe this is just a dream. Maybe they'll come back. Maybe they'll come back in another way, or But no, death was dead. They killed him off, and that was it. They found a few loopholes here and there with some other characters in the way they did the end of the series, but still, like there's consequences. I think death, if you don't have death in your stories, then just kind of anything goes. There's not any kind of real consequences to danger or heroism and those kinds of things. But for me, right, like my most impactful as a kid was just the Dark Phoenix saga with Jean Grey and the X-Men. Like her being Phoenix and then being Dark Phoenix and being killed off, and for a long time stay dead. You're like, wow, they just killed off a major character. It wasn't the first time in comics they've done that, but for me as an X-Men fan, that was big. But now Jean Grey, I don't know how many times she's died and come back. I mean, she's the Phoenix, right? She's always going to come back. So you kill her off, she's going to be back in 6 issues or 2 years. They'll put her on the shelf for a little while until somebody's ready to pick her up and put her back in the story and play with her again. So you're kind of like, okay. And I think that happens a lot in comics. Like Bucky Barnes was dead for a very, very long time, and until they brought him back. This happens in comics all the time, but I think there is, other than alternate universes and what ifs or different kind of things, Uncle Ben from Spidey has remained dead. They have not brought him back or said, oh, the whole time you thought he was dead, he's not. I like it. Please, as major origin story of Peter Parker's guilt, please don't ever bring back Uncle Ben. You tell different stories if he survived or if he's around, how Peter Parker could be different. But in the main storyline, the main timeline, let's keep Uncle Ben.
It's a canon event.
It's a canon event, right?
Until Across the Spider-Verse comes back out, and we have some sort of resolution with how that whole thing's going to go.
The canon events, like those things shape person's characters or what makes them who they are. And there's canon events in my own life, certain deaths and certain losses and in my own life that have my whole life would be different if it didn't go that way, better or for worse.
It's unfortunately true.
Yeah. That's a big part of that. Other characters out there in fan of that. I mean, of course, Star Wars. You have like everyone's favorite that Palpatine came back. I mean, people love that. I mean, people loved that so much they just wanted more that Palpatine came. Sorry if you can sense the sarcasm, but even Star Wars, you have the Ghost, the Force Ghost. You're like, oh, Obi-Wan's dead. I can't believe he's gone. But then, you hear his voice, or you have a Force Ghost who's there to help guide and things. So even Star Wars, like dead is dead, but they're one with the Force. And they come back as a spiritual mystic voice to help give guidance to things. Is there in Star Wars? What else is out there? Kind of famous deaths and returns.
I think about mine. I think you think back. Probably one of the first ones I can think of is Final Fantasy VII. Right, Cloud falls into the life stream. You think, okay, that's it. And then you're halfway through disc 2, and then you find him, on some island somewhere, and he doesn't know who he is. And you're like, oh, he's not dead.
Yep.
One of my favorite ones I'm thinking about is Gandalf.
Ah, yes.
The Two Towers, He has that awesome scene with the Balrog, very meaningful moment. and just sort of guts the whole fellowship, and then having him come back and the Two Towers. Wow, yeah, right, and better, right? Ooh, death makes us better. If we can have a resurrection.
Yeah, that from gray to white, but in some lost memories, or him, even he is kind of like in this, like, oh yeah, do I remember my former self? I'm a new self. I'm a new creation. Tolkien's playing around with that.
Oh, for sure.
A little bit. Gandalf the Grey, Gandalf the White does remember things. Oh, what's going on? I think they portrayed that pretty well in me. But yeah, Gandalf's great pull. Yep, fantastic.
Ooh, I just remembered another one. Sorry, Jon Snow.
Yeah.
Big spoiler.
Yeah.
Big spoiler.
Yeah.
That one was crazy and not fully explained. Anyways, gonna
no, that's good, because I did watch.
Then.
I was late to Game of Thrones, and we binged it, a couple of years ago, last year, or whatever, and we finished it, and I knew kind of the end, and I knew like his kind of legendary status to for the end. So when that happened in one of the seasons, I was like, no, wait, what? How could that be? So I knew he was going to come back, but it was just kind of like, how are they going to come back? And the same way, like,
came back to essentially do nothing. Sorry.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, James? No, like same way with Superman, the death of Superman. Like,
yes.
it is to sell books. We know they're going to bring him back, but what is the DC universe like without Superman? Who's going to step up? What new characters are going to happen? So it provided them an arena to play with some characters they wouldn't normally do if it's overshadowed by Superman. They've killed off Batman a few times. Okay, what is that universe like without Batman around? What does his family do? What does Dick Grayson do? What do others do if he's not around? And then you're like, all right, the surprise is not if they're going to bring it back, but when and how. So we go through the liturgical year in our churches, and Holy Week, it's like, oh, okay, wonder what's going to happen on Easter. There's a little bit of like a spoiler alert, he's going to be back. But I share the story of when my kid was like 3.
Which every day is Easter, by the way, in case people
every
don't know that,
day, every Sunday. That's right. It's the Easter celebration.
Because he still lives.
He still lives. That's right. But to grasp that or encounter that story for the first time, my kid, when she was little, I remember trying to explain Good Friday to her, and said Jesus died. She was like, "What? Jesus died?" And I was like, "Yeah, buddy." She was like, "Ah, I sure am gonna miss that guy." And I was like, "Oh, wow, okay, all right." And I just let it hang. I didn't over explain it. I didn't do anything. I was just like, "All right, here, she's gonna have a surprise on Easter. Spoiler alert, here comes Easter." She's like, "What? He's back! Yay!" Which goes into this show, like in terms of like that's kind of the Christian hope leading into that is ultimately, will death have the final word? I mean, nihilism is an option. Materialism is an option to say like, yep, this is it. We're given one life and we live it to the fullest. And when it's over, it's over is definitely an option. But I think the Christian core message and gospel is that death will not have the final word. And so that's kind of what All Saints leans into, is that, our loved ones have passed on. They've died. They've whatever they're experienced in this world and passed on. I will preach every sermon, funeral sermon with because Christ lives, they will live also. Death doesn't have the final word. They have now. Now is a hard word. Grief sucks. It's a real thing. It's not like we're going to sugarcoat this and say there aren't real. The sting of death is real and it sucks. But ultimately, this will not have the final word.
They are alive in Christ, whatever that means.
Whatever that means, wherever you see them. Yeah. 100%. All right. So, all right, we're we don't have a final bonus question. We're going to do it here. Like, all right, Matthew and James, favorite saint, and how are you define saint? It could be someone that's on, they have like beautiful iconography in the Greek Orthodox Church of this particular saint, or it could be a loved one or someone you look up to, or whatever. It could be someone that's not on anybody's radar. No wrong answers here. Matthew, favorite saint?
Most of the patristics for me, but I really kind of had to boil it down because the question was on here. So I think Justin Martyr
Okay.
Is a big one for me. You know, he was saved later. He was pagan. Um,
Hmm.
but he was kind of the first Christian philosopher, right? He was our first apologist because you know, a lot of people don't know this unless you're a historian and into this sort of thing. But Rome was all about old stuff and tradition, and the older and more ancient something is, well, the better and more sacred it must be. And then here comes Christianity, right, which is this new religion. So they were very skeptical because, one, monotheism, to them Christians were atheists because you don't believe in the pantheon, and
Right.
and and two, it's a new belief. So without any history or tradition, well, it can't be good and it can't be true. It's new. So in all of this turmoil in Rome in the second century, um, Justin wrote an apology and he sent it to the emperor, really defending Christian morality and saying, hey, these are the kinds of lives we live. These are not bad things. Will you, for the sake of God and all that is holy, just let us be? Of course, he
Right.
died, which is where
Yeah.
we get the term martyr from, Justin
Mhm.
Martyr. But yeah, so I just
That's cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
him
Yeah.
to really just be the first one. I mean, we have Paul. They say that he reasoned whatever. We have that in the scripture, but kind of post Acts, he's really our first kind of Christian philosopher to really have a rationale and reason out the Christian faith. Really, it in a way to combat against non-believers.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of like second generation Christians, right? You had the first generation, those who witnessed Christ,
Hmm. Yep.
and saw, you know, the resurrection or Christ, the living and risen Christ on
Yeah. So you got
with their eyes, and then
him.
Justin's like the second generation of passed on to the
Yeah.
next
So Justin,
generation,
Ignatius, Polycarp, all those kind of second generation, they were disciples of the disciples.
right?
So they were disciples of either John or Paul or Peter. Like, so they walked with those who walked with Christ. So
Yeah,
you're only, you know, you're only one generation removed.
there you go.
Yeah.
James, how about you? Favorite saint?
Oh man. Gosh. Lots of different ways to go with this question.
Yeah.
I can tell I'm getting on in pastoral years and experience because I can think of parishioners now who have died. Who
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that person was a saint.
Yep.
Actually, so like I think about
And not throwing that around lightly. That's like
not
in
throwing that
awe,
around.
and it's a role model of faith.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I there was my internship congregation. There was a guy. His name was Glenn, and Glenn went to college like in his 70s and got his degree. And just because he always wanted to, and he was hit by a car like walking on campus and lived. He made it through it, but had like severe mobility issues after that. And I just he life was real tough for him, but he came to our like Theology on Tap men's group every Tuesday, pumped to be there and to fellowship and to talk. And I just he's gone now, or he's resting in the Lord now. But I think of Glenn. I think of some of my own mentors and role models who are still with me, and some of whom are gone now. I think of some of the witnesses of the church. For me, my biggest theological influence, besides Martin Luther and the Lord, is in that order. Just kidding. Is
A proper
Soren.
Lutheran.
Yeah, Soren Kierkegaard, who is he's just sort of my like theological hero. He actually, in one of his books, he talks about actually the practice of remembering the dead as the most authentically true form of love you can have for another person, because it's the only way you can love someone and never have the option to get something back.
Ooh.
When you remember the dead, when you love on those who have gone before, you can expect no return on investment or reward. It's pure. Yeah. So anyways, one thought of his among many that I really love, but just sit with that's a little theological tidbit for you.
Yeah, I feel like we should end
that's
there.
jamming.
Yeah, but I can't. I gotta share mine. Like I was like, oh, and that's it, folks. We're gonna end with that. That's right. But I'm gonna totally no. I'm gonna be somewhat cliche, but not really, because I like one of my favorite saints is Saint Nicholas, just because not just because of Santa Claus, but like the legend of Saint Nick, and his feast day is December 6th. Punching heretics. Legend has it he was at the Council of Nicaea, and he was a defender of Trinitarian faith, and but also a part of his story and legend is defending the poor and patron saint of children and gift giving and sailors, those tossed back and forth on the tempest of doubt on the sea. Like he was a part of that. So like just his countercultural kind of just rage against the machine way of a bishop, that was out there defending the Trinitarian faith, but also making sure that like these girls don't go into prostitution, that they have dowries. I mean, there's these things going into that I just love his story, apart from like the cultural Santa Claus part of it. But yeah, I love Santa. That's my favorite saint. But I'll also say that my home pastor growing up, I almost call him Saint, but yeah, he should be. Pastor Harold Love McSwain, his middle name was Love, was the pastor that reared me and that put up with me as a punk kid and teenager in confirmation, and died when I was in college. Yeah, he died abruptly, and when I was in college of a brain aneurysm. I'm not going to say that our youth group caused that, but maybe. But the poor dude, like, I remember before he died, me mentioning to him, like, me taking my faith a little bit more seriously, and that maybe seminary one day, and he was like, "Oh, really? You? Oh, okay, let's go down this road." What a saint, and just kind of mild mannered. I don't remember one sermon he preached, as a kid, but I do remember his posture towards us and his patience with us, and guiding us and putting up with us, punk kids, and guiding us. And so yeah, like I know there'll be people who don't remember a single word I preached, but hopefully they'll remember like how I treated them and the posture I had towards them, and how they made them feel. And that, to me, that's the saint out there. So yeah, folks, share with us your favorite saint.
Yeah.
What's the impact for you? Someone that's in your life, maybe it's a relative, maybe it's a spiritual mentor. It could be a legend across the 2,000 years of church history who you look up to, who stood up for faith and articulated it in a way that you've never heard it articulated before, whether it's Bonhoeffer or Martin Luther King Jr. or Martin Luther or Justin Martyr or St. Nicholas or yeah, all that, the whole pantheon. Yeah. So any closing thoughts, friends? What do we forget? Like, I don't want my host to like go to bed at night going, God, I wish I said this about All Saints, or I wish I shared about this saint, or I didn't get this word in. What is it? Anything else out there? They didn't know I was going to ask this question. Yeah. So there you go, friends. So you hear that pause, and it's not, your earbuds aren't broken. We're just all thinking with you. So I want you to think about that same question.
Yeah, Josh.
I would just say if All Saints isn't a part of your tradition or heritage, remembering the dead and thinking about those who have gone before can be so meaningful and so powerful. And so I would just encourage you to, as a Lutheran pastor hat on, tap in and make some time, whatever that looks like for you. So yeah, it can be really powerful.
Yeah.
I want to say, we're surrounded by a cloud of witnesses, whatever that means. But that is biblical and it's creedal. You are not alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, yes, we have Christ immanent, right? We have the Spirit within us, and we have Christ who walks beside us, and all of those things. But sometimes, you know, we needed to have skin.
Yeah.
It is not just Christ who is with you, but all who have gone before. And in a sense, all those who do not yet believe and will come after are with you as well. You
Yeah.
are not alone in your faith, in your walk.
Yeah, I love that, Matthew. That's absolutely, in terms of hope, we live in a world that hungers for hope and often seems hopeless. And we're in the midst of elections and people throwing a lot of rhetoric around, like, how they can fix the world or fix this or fix that, or don't do this, don't support this person or whatever. But in terms of, I think what I hold on to our faith is that death doesn't have the final word because of Christ. That God's love will not let death have the final word. But also we're entangled with one another in this big family tree, this tree that we're all entangled and a part of one another's life, and we aren't alone. So those who have gone before us and those who will come after us, that someone may look up to me, and that my story will have an impact on them, a generation behind me, whether it's my kids or family or grandkids or church members or something, that hopefully I have the same posture as Pastor McSwain did, for the kids in my youth group and those who are in my midst. They are not going to remember a word I say, but at least they'll know that I care for and love for them, and I think that makes a difference. So yeah, folks, happy All Saints Day, whatever you mean by saint, and who you are surrounded by people who take care of you. Like, share, review this episode on YouTube, share around the podcast to your friends. We know it's a crowded market. There's a lot of options out there, but we are thankful that you take time to listen to us and listen all the way to the end. And yeah, and if there's 50 likes on this particular YouTube video, I will frolic in a field of flowers. It's going to be winter, so it's going to be really hard to do that in the winter, but I'll find some plastic flowers and put on a bathing suit and walk around the cold ice and snow just for you folks. If you have 50 likes out there is the challenge. And yeah, I will say a saint that I look up to is our fearless leader, Josh Noel. He does a lot with this podcast and curating these topics and editing. And we don't have an extra bonus question. His family experienced a family emergency and some hard times as of late, and his poor dog Cooper, we're pulling for him and praying for them and in solidarity with them. So send him a message, help his GoFundMe. Let him know you care for him. And I'm going to close this episode. Usually, I'm a little snarky towards how he closes episodes, but I'm going to use his sign off. Yep. Better believe it, Joshua. Your sign off. Remember that we're all a chosen people, a geekdom of priests. I thought I hit, yeah.